Man Ray, American, 1890s to 1976, by Consuelo. This is a quote by Man Ray: "A pig that cannot be photographed, that which comes from the imagination, or from dreams, or from an unconscious drive." Man Ray was born 1990s in Philadelphia. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Russia. His father worked as a tailor. From a small age, he showed great artistic abilities. After graduating from high school in 1908, he pursued his love for art. He started to draw with Robert Henry after Ferenc Hunter. Later, it was shown that he had been influenced by Stiglitz's photographs because he was using the similar style, such as snapping images that showed unvanishing looks. He was a part of the Data and Surrealism movement, worked as a map illustrator, and moved to Paris to be a surrealist. Died in 1978 at age 86. He was influenced, like I said, by Alfred Stieglitz. He invented the bryograph, which was an interesting images that in his darkroom images that were created by putting multiple objects in one piece of photosensitive paper. He was the leading figure of surrealism and data movement, both America and France, 1921. He studied the National Academy of Design and at Federal School. Early in his career, he worked as a map publisher and gave up to practice art. He met Stiglitz in 1913. 1917, he gave up painting and focused more on photographs. In 1917, he was offered a scholarship to be an architect. He turned it down and decided to be an artist. His parents disagreed at first, but then later on encouraged him. They even encouraged him to convert a room from the house to his own studio. One of the persons who was the mentor and influenced Man Ray was Marcus de Sade. He was writing sexual epilogues involving women's. Man Ray later had an obsession with women and started photographing them. This is a photograph that he took called it was one of his ryographs. It was an everyday object that was unique. Version image put in many objects different time to make this image. Another famous photograph that he took was the glass tears in 1933. It was a solarization. This is not a real woman. It was a fashion mannequin that cried tears that ran down her face. He made this photograph in Paris around the time he broke up with his lover Lee Miller. This was related to this event of his life. This image, the Noir del Plache, it was a part of the MoMA movement in 1941. It was a construct of two faces. An African cinema mask invented to view construct of two different. This one was a sleeping woman. It was in 1929. It was a MoMA. It was a solarization movement. This one was another radiograph image in 1922. He placed different objects different times to create this image. He exposed the paper to light at least 3 times. Every different object, for example, the pair of hands right here, then 2 people kissing, and to a trace of dark room. This was another image called the dust breeding. It was a documentation, large glass after collected worth dust while judgment was at New York, 2 hours long of exposure. This was another image by Man Ray called the Laboratory of Future, which if you can see like really close up, you see his studio. It was an experiment to show people how his studio looked. Or yeah. This other image called Jacqueline Goddard, 1930s. It was a data. It was a fantasy of like since he took pictures of like kind of like dreamy pictures, I guess. It was a reversal of norms because what was white became black, and what was black became white, and what was white became black. The shadows glowed. This was an image. This is another photograph called Lee Miller, which was his lover and his muse. He was her teacher, and then she was his student, and then later on they found love. Their relationship created powerful works such as, their work impacted on each other's lives. They created beautiful photographs, I guess. There's another image called Henry Cowder, 1928. There's another image called Natasha, 1929. Apparently she was one of his lovers, and like I said before, the one guy who was his mentor, Marvelous Dessalles, influenced him to take pictures of nudes. There's another radiograph, 1922. As you can see, it has like different types of exposures, objects. There's another image called The Veil. It was surrealism, one of his surrealism images in 1930s. And there's another image called Parte. It was a man dressed as a woman, showing the world how easy it was to change. And there's another image called Develin Igres, which was the same thing as, was translated as hobby. He drew in the violin signs. He created Kiki's, who was the model, brought it into a musical instrument while playing it. He loved playing violin, was his hobby, so it portrayed it. Bareback covered performer named Kiki added 2 musical shapes on her back. And lastly, Man Ray, he created this one, who was Pablo Picasso, who was one of the influential people who made him who he is today. And yeah.